All right.
John?
Pimps and card shots, thieves, murderers with hard luck. We all product, basement hard luck. Basement hard luck. Card shots, thieves, murderers with hard luck. Pimps and card shots, thieves, murderers with hard luck.
Good morning and welcome to the Hard Luck Show. You got Lucky, got the Indian, got old Blue Eyes here.
That's right. Yeah, short and sweet.
No, if you don't know who the fuck we are by now,
Right.
go to the last 370 episodes and listen to some
And go
long
figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
we don't got
right.
time for that.
Good morning, Chumahan.
Hey.
Who's our guest today?
Today we have the illustrious, the amazing, the highly credentialed, and when I say high, I mean high, THC high.
Woo.
That's right.
Senior writer, feature writer for the LA Times, also creator and star of The Green Room, the official LA Times video series covering cannabis, commerce, California, Mr. Adam Tschorn.
Welcome, Adam, Sean. Holy
shit.
cannoli, Adam.
Holy smokes.
That is a warm welcome.
Damn,
Yeah.
Adam.
Much.
How in the hell do you become a writer, chief editor for the LA Times?
I'm not an editor. My
Okay.
editors would be very upset.
Yeah,
to
his
hear that.
editor right now
Yeah,
is
he's
getting like that
going,
motherfucking Adam.
How do you become a senior writer?
You start out as a junior writer.
When you start out as a junior writer, what are you
Senior
writing?
writer. Okay, I get it.
That was a little bit of a joke, but
Oh, I see. So you're not covering the comedy section.
No,
I
exactly.
got it. But
Rim shot, please.
yes, he's here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Now, but the issue is when you first start out at a major publication like that, and what beat were you covering originally?
I was covering fashion originally.
And what kind of fashion?
Men's fashion.
Right.
I started back in 2017 when the LA Times launched a standalone fashion section called Image.
Right.
And they hired like 10 people, and I was one of them. And my beat was menswear, action sports. I covered all the action sports brands that were down in Orange County. I covered denim.
Wow.
And so I focused on that stuff. And then as time went on and the number of people in the section shrank and shrank, I ended up going to the runway shows in Paris and Milan. And
Dude, what is it like going to a runway show in Paris and Milan? Be real.
Okay, Bobcat Goldthwait.
I love that guy.
So
Police Academy.
I remember seeing a stand-up routine that he did
Right.
when his baby was being born, and he was in the delivery room, and the doctor said, handed him the knife, said, "Mr. Goldthwait, would you like to cut the cord?" And he's like, "Don't you think there's someone just a little more qualified?"
Right.
That shaky little voice.
Yes.
And I felt that, but my wife was the fashion critic at the LA Times, and I studied at her knee. She taught me everything. It actually is very formulaic to cover the shows. I mean, it's easy to do. It's not easy to do well.
And did you ever go to any crazy, wild European or American runway fashion party that just got out of control, Mr. Tschorn?
Yeah, there were some. I'm trying to think. The Paris shows were always like, Galliano would take you out to some like go-kart place on the outskirts of town. I think the craziest one was actually when I was with my wife. There was a fashion show at Versailles, and I'm just like looking around, and there's like orange trees in pots, and I'm like, what on earth? This kid from Vermont doing,
Right.
So,
And so with the action sports,
Yeah,
Steve,
come on. What happened? What's going on there? Let's talk about that. I come from a background where I was
why don't you
building
tell
streetwear
him?
brands.
Yeah, your pedigree.
From the 90s. I started building streetwear brands in
Like what?
1991.
What brands?
Supermax brand. I had a clothing store on Melrose called Supermax.
Okay.
And Mark Fox was my backer. Mark Fox was a guy who was big into leather jackets and 501 jeans. Guys like Aerosmith, Mickey Rourke, when the Harleys and fringe jackets were in. I started that brand, and that kind of transcended into Joker brand.
Okay.
With Be Real. Everlast was our original partner.
Right.
And then in about 2000, I linked up with Travis Barker.
Okay.
And we launched a brand called Famous Stars and Straps.
Yeah, Stars and
they're a
Straps.
huge
Yeah, I know
brand.
Stars and Straps, yeah.
And from there, I kind of moved over to the Hundreds when they were a very little store on Rosewood, and we had our offices next to Supreme, and came in there as like a sales brand manager. And then from there, I linked up with Rob Dyrdek, his cousin Drama, who were about to start a show on MTV, and they wanted to do a brand called Young and Reckless.
Okay.
So I started Young and Reckless, then built that brand.
So I feel like you and I must have been like, one of those sitcom door slamming farces, in one door and out, like very close around each other.
Very
in
close.
That space, yeah.
Do you remember? Have you ever heard of a guy named Irving Cass?
Is he
He
related?
did Carl Kanai. I come from that genre of denim from L.A. Carl Kanai, back in the RP55 days and that type of stuff. Big magic shows and
Magic,
that type of
which is
stuff.
my favorite magic story. I went to Magic, which, as people who know it doesn't stand for Magic Tricks. It stands for the Men's Apparel Guild in California, which is where it started. But
I did not know that.
So one of my first times at Magic, David Copperfield was at one of the parties, and I'm like, I'm here for Magic, and he said, so am I, but not the same kind. It's a
right, which is why he does
man.
magic and he doesn't do comedy.
Right,
a lot
exactly.
of, something about apparel, and we were talking about it last week, was I came up at a time where, New York really had the crown. You know what? They were giving no love to California lifestyle.
Yeah.
California lifestyle at that time was primarily led by beach and surf culture, right?
Yep.
Blonde hair, blue eyes, see if you watch, And we were building streetwear brands, out of LA, which were a little more core, real true street brands.
Yeah.
They call it streetwear, but street brands. And we'd go to these magic shows and set up, and we were about tattoo culture and blacks and grays and navies, and the apparel very top driven, and everything big that was going on was coming from the East Coast. Yeah. And you had the RP55s, you had the Sean Johns, the Rockawares, and these were big brands that were now in bed with the Nessies and people like that, and they were doing big Garmento denim deals. You know what I'm saying? As time kind of started changing, we stuck to what we were doing, and finally it started coming back around. Kind of, Famous Stars and Straps was able to catapult through, due to stuff like a Von Dutch and like the trucker hat and the belt buckle. And now all of a sudden the waves started coming here. And it was kind of pre what they're calling today streetwear. Yeah. And started doing big business. And it was kind of in 2005 that the Hundreds was somebody that was like an early, newer streetwear brand. And I remember the early Hundreds were doing things that we were doing in 90. I mean, I was doing farm jackets, raw denim, chambray shirts back in 91, 92, which they weren't ready for. Nobody understood it. But then 2004, 2005, when I link up with the Hundreds, they did a whole collection called the Lucky Collection. And it was farm jackets, Pendleton, like,
wait, is that named after you?
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And that stuff was being received. It was like the first time anybody had seen it. So I got to relive it and watch that unfold. But it's interesting, man, because the culture from California and what we've been doing is very, very unique. It's always been unique. And it's interesting now how it's transcended from the East Coast to the West Coast. The West Coast, I really feel like, drives lifestyle in apparel, in a lot of ways in fashion. And so it's interesting to sit with somebody that kind of is here talking about...
And marijuana.
Well, and marijuana, too. And the two. And I'm now currently the brand manager and have been for the last year and a half of Cookies. I linked up with Berner, and he had kind of followed my career and knew what I was about. And I came aboard and started really building this brand into a real apparel brand with Brian.
What is your thought about Cookies?
Cookies is one of those brands that I've watched. I was at the opening of the store. I think it was opening of the store on Melrose. It was Berner's birthday.
Yes.
It was like several years ago.
Yeah. That was the dispensary was opening up, right?
Yeah. So, but that was at the time I wasn't covering cannabis full time. It was sort of, I was trying to find an entryway into it through the fashion stuff. And, and someone told me that the Cookies apparel side, because there's the clothing store was right next to it,
right.
is that it was, I think at that time, and maybe still is, the #1 apparel brand in Zoomies and Tilly's.
It's not in Tilly's. We're not in Tilly's, but we are the #1 brand in Zoomies stores.
So, which I just find fascinating.
And Joe, listen, today, Mr. Tschorn, today, right, Steve? You guys did a collaboration with who, and it dropped?
Pro Club. We did a Pro Club, which is synonymous with Los Angeles and Southern California lifestyle, and very urban-ish, brand.
And that was just with the clothing side. I mean, are the two siloed?
No.
Because
I tell you right now, like a lot of our collaborations, what we do in apparel, we keep kind of off the radar, off the platforms from cannabis. we can bridge the two once in a while, but there's a lot of red tape to it. The other thing is, like, I was just talking about this morning, the world itself and big companies that are established, that have been around a while, we've gotten into deals with brands. And as we kind of start moving forward in it, they start to back up and go, hey, we didn't realize.
As they find out more about the brand and realize that there's a very high-profile cannabis
Exactly, and they back up. So it's almost like newer brands are willing to take that. It almost makes sense for them to take that risk.
Because they don't have anything to
lose. They don't have a lot. Right. Yeah. So a lot of these big established brands are like, why would we put ourselves out there? Why would we? They don't get it. So, you know, I'm not going to mention the brands on air, but there's a few that we've gotten all the ways to the starting line, if you want to call it to.
Right.
Talks for 6 months.
Right.
As soon as we get there, they pull the deal. They're like, no, you know what? We just can't. It's too close.
And without disclosing who they are, they would be brands that you would naturally think might collaborate with cookies or cannabis.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They fit the sort of genre, but they've been around a long time, and I think there may be, I don't know, older ideas about they're not yet ready to embrace.
And some of the CEOs and the guys that sit on the board or the owners are these older gentlemen who just don't get it. But I tell you something, I will say this. You know, Bernard was just on the cover of Forbes magazine.
I was just going to say, he was on the cover of Forbes. Yeah.
Right.
You know, so like, I don't know what you know, that's a pretty big statement to all that. But, you know, I want to hear your take on it, because this is what you're talking about. Cannabis,
right, this is
and
both
apparel,
of your...
and this is all these worlds, man.
So I was just going to turn the tables and be a reporter and start asking you about because people are always like, oh, from fashion to cannabis. And I'm like, they are very similar.
Oh,
right?
And it's, dude, if anything's becoming what's really happening, I've been saying it for the last couple of years. People like to say, oh, your clothes, your brand, what's the brand doing, and cookies the brand. I go, listen, bro, this isn't just a regular clothing brand. I've built brands, $100 million brands that are clothing brands. This is not that. This brand sits and represents and sits at the front of a tidal wave of a culture, of a lifestyle that's the fastest growing thing on the planet. And it's cannabis. And what people are gonna start seeing is they're gonna start seeing this new kind of morph hybrid of an apparel and other things blending with cannabis. It's the beginning.
What would be great is to have the fibers from the hemp plants
Absolutely.
to make the clothes, and then in this patch next to it, the flower that you can smoke. You know.
I think Bernard's really been pushing. He's been pushing for a long time to get his products made of hemp. He's a big hemp. And it's only because industry doesn't fully support it yet to make it feasible. You get what I'm saying? Like,
totally
you know what I'm saying? It's not set up yet, but he's been a big component. He'd ultimately like to make hemp shirts and all of his
There's
stuff
a lot
of
of textile people that don't want to switch textiles. By the way, Blue Eyes, are you listening to this? You got two titans here talking about the future of clothing.
Amazing.
Go ahead, please.
I feel like the cannabis plant is the Swiss Army knife of plants. It can make clothes, it can make medicine, it can make,
But wasn't there some scheme back in the day where like cotton was already kind of like solidified and everybody was invested, and then hemp came along, they're like, why don't we just criminalize hemp and get that out, because you don't need the same, you don't have to return the soil, there's all these, right?
I don't know that, but what you're saying is sort of like the reason why there are no cable cars in LA.
Exactly,
right?
the rubber.
Right.
Exactly.
There are
like there's no long-lasting light bulb. Remember?
Right.
But here's the thing. This is what I know about.
You remember Carlos De La Torre going into this story?
1,000%. Here's the thing about cannabis that I've picked up along the way. It was introduced, they think, into the Americas by the Spaniards, who brought it over for the specific purpose of making ropes and for the hemp uses or whatever it is. And there's a book called The Botany of Desire by Michael Pollan, and he talks about marijuana being one of the plants that has been able to manipulate human beings to take it all around the world, right? And that's the concept of it. And he says that they believe that it originated originally from what they've gathered from the mountains near like Afghanistan or over there.
Asia.
That's right.
Asia.
And when I was in Bhutan, there was marijuana growing on the side of the roads, and nobody cared.
Bhutan roadweed?
Yeah, Bhutan roadweed, exactly. And nobody cared. Nobody was worried about it. Nobody said anything. So now that we're in the cannabis zone, I do want to kind of just dive into how did Adam Tschorn come into our orbit.
Yeah, how did that happen?
So
I know you're responsible for that.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't want to toot my own horn. No, but the point
This
is,
motherfucking microphone sucks.
yeah, every microphone in
Damn
here.
microphone is full of shit. Here, knocking the cameras over. People can't see me. Okay,
all right,
go ahead,
so
go ahead.
Adam Tschorn wrote an article called "Stoned Yoga" for the LA Times.
Is that you showing up there?
That's me. That's me trying to do the she was like, hold your own hands, and I was like, I could not hold my own hands.
And in it, right, because I was interested in stone yoga because we do talk a little bit about cannabis, and I just thought, like, all right, let's see what's out there. This was by far the best article, and it was also the highest ranked article in Google, right? So kudos to you.
Damn, dude.
Thank you, SEO people.
Right.
That's
And not
major.
only that, but look at this. This looks like about 15 years of experience of fucking reporting right there. These words.
In my mind.
Look at this.
tingled and
Look, I'll
swelled.
just read you a
Yes,
smidge.
please give us a taste.
I used to be angry about yoga. Or, more accurately, I used to carry a grudge against yoga.
That's a great
Mwah.
right there.
Oh, it makes
It's
me
like on
want
some Kevin Bish level type shit, right?
Exactly, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Shakespeare couldn't have written it better.
No.
So what was the reason that you had a grudge against yoga?
I had done yoga precisely once before in my life. My then girlfriend, now wife, had taken me to a yoga class, and I could not get myself in. I was looking at everybody else doing the different positions, the downward dog and the different positions, and I felt awkward and uncomfortable, and I was nervous that people were judging me, and I was angry and frustrated that I couldn't do the positions.
Sure.
And I felt, probably like a kid does in kindergarten or first grade when he's not picked for the kickball team or what. And it just was a whole world that I didn't know, and I didn't know how to do it, and I got angry. And it's a testament to the video team that I work with. We were up at Hall of Flowers, and I made an offhanded remark that I said I've tried yoga exactly once, and it made me angry. And Mark Potts, one of our producers, videographers, was like, he got on his phone and he found Stoned Yoga in LA and said, we're going to do Stoned Yoga. And so they knew that there was something there.
Right.
Yeah,
that
some
could be
tension.
comedy.
Because that's the opposite, Mr. Vermont. When you go to yoga, usually you cool out. You don't get pissed. So they said, we'll induce you with cannabis.
I don't know if that's
they'll-
true altogether, because I've gone and done yoga and found it the same way, because I was frustrated and it was painful.
Yeah,
Right?
it
and I
hurt.
couldn't do these, and I'm looking at everybody else, and everybody else in there seems like they can. I can't do this. And
All
I'm like,
these
and it's-
lithe, bendable bodies.
Exactly, and I've got
Loose
injuries
pants,
and
lots
I
of
was
loose pants.
I was frustrated. I mean, when you read that, there's a lot of truth to that. And I think there's a lot of truth out for a lot of people. I think people have run away from yoga because of their first initial experience with it. They get all burned out. And that's why also it's important that, I don't know about stone yoga, but for regular yoga, people will always say, and don't make the mistake of going to the advanced class. Go to like the beginner. Start there, because you'll get really discouraged.
And as you can see in that, I think it's like maybe the second graph there. There's all kinds of different yoga, and I think it's about finding a comfort level. There's dog yoga. There's
That's for you, oh Blue Eyes.
the naked yoga, broga
Hot
yoga
yoga,
for bros,
right.
hot yoga, hypno yoga,
Please
drinking yoga, goat yoga.
Yeah, give us a brief synopsis of goat yoga. What have you heard about goat yoga?
Well, one of my coworkers, way back in the day, had done goat yoga, and you do the pose, and like the little goat like climbs on your back, and it's like this
Really?
cute little thing. People love it. Like,
That's dope.
yeah.
I mean,
With the
sounds,
little goat.
sounds dangerous. I love little goats.
Greatest of all time, yoga.
Right, but goats like to butt shit, and if you're spreading your
Yeah.
legs and the goat just hits you right in the nuts, that's what
I'd
screwed up.
start licking your nuts too.
That's what happened to BB King. That's why he was sterile.
Yeah.
All right. So going through that, so then, okay, so they know.
Yeah. What's it like?
Yeah. So what
Tell us.
happens?
So, we met in the backyard. Jesse, yoga with Jesse. She had her little backyard place, and we got a bunch of people together, and we all smoked up, and I got super, super high. I think I smoked like 2 little Pure Beauty dog walker joints, little tiny ones.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, she's like, it's okay, it's time to do yoga. And I'm like, oh no. And, I was up on this little raised platform, and she says, okay, clear your mind, clear everything. And of course, it's easy for everybody else to clear their mind, but I've got
Clearing your mind.
three-
You got all sorts of clutter in your mind.
I've got 2 guys with cameras, and one guy,
yeah.
one puts a a GoPro right in front of me.
You're
I'm like,
stoned.
so I'm trying to and I'm high as a kite. And so, and I just tried to listen to what she was saying. I couldn't get much like the first time I tried yoga. The second time I tried yoga, I couldn't get myself into the positions, and my knees hurt when I was doing the thing. Yeah. And at one point, you can see it in the video, I get a really big case of the giggles because I go from frustrated to giggly,
which is a very thin line, by the way.
Yeah,
when you're stoned,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And I'm rolling around. I'm wearing these
wait,
yoga pants.
Wait a second. First of all, hold on. The outfit. How was this decision? Because you look like a groupie for the Grateful Dead, right? You got a tie-dye top on and wheat print yoga pants. How did that come about?
So the shirt was mine. It's from the Roger Waters tour. So that was a natural.
Another brick
Hell
in the wall.
yeah.
And one of our other
Shout out to Roger Waters, by the way.
It does take a village. One of the other producers, Eric, said, I found exactly what you should wear. He found them on Amazon and ordered them and had them sent to me. And so
Did you cuss him out at first?
Yeah, I was like, now you're gonna make me look like a clown
because you're the fashion. You married to what did your wife say? The fashion critic.
She was out of town.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
But I did send a picture, and
what did she say?
She just kind of shook her head.
Right, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
She likes to tell a joke that when I met you, you were wearing white socks and black sneakers, and I'm like, stop it. So.
All right.
Anyway.
So now, listen. Let's go to everybody, Mr. and Mrs. Earbuds, the stylings of Mr. Tschorn and the Green Room LA Times. Yes, please. From the episode Stoned Yoga, Adam producing. Kind of jazzy.
How long have you been offering cannabis-enhanced yoga classes, and what does it entail?
I've been offering this class for about 4 years now. We do it once a month. Usually we do Yin Yoga, which I think is really good with cannabis because it's very slow and relaxing. And I always like to accompany that with a sound bath, which is another level of sensory experience. With a sound bath and a yoga, I find students can really tap into their feelings and their body. We can breathe a little deeper and slower while we are high on cannabis. Yeah.
Is there anything that you need to do differently or approach differently when you are doing cannabis-enhanced yoga?
I think you have to be more in tune with your body and know what is it that you need from the practice. Everybody feels different, right?
Okay, so all right, so right there, you're doing an awesome interview. Are you high at that moment?
No.
Is she high at that moment?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, we showed up. This was 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't think she was. I maybe she smoked before, but I don't think so. We all got high. We did the interview. Then everybody else showed up, and we all smoked out. And then we did yoga.
Steve, at this moment, what is your impression of what's going on here? Is this maybe the most California thing you've ever seen?
I mean, it's pretty California. And then when they switch to the backyard, it's super California.
Yeah. So we're all in the backyard, and that's a little raised platform.
Right.
But it's cinder blocks.
Yeah.
Still got that hippie vibe.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Right. And Yin Yoga and I don't know this. I looked it up after this whole thing.
Looks like everybody got the munchies real bad in that picture, huh? Go on.
Well, look at Adam. He looks like he's about ready to be hanged.
Throw up.
Looking at his knee don't hurt me now,
I just know what's coming. It's
like, please, arthritis, don't happen now.
Yeah.
But anyway, Yin Yoga, in case anybody really wants to know, it's slow yoga, and it was created by Paulie Zink, Long Beach, major kung fu champion, and kind of a weird guy. Lots of videos on YouTube. Check it out. He's on par with Bruce Lee, they say. The guy was amazing.
I totally get it. I support it. I think that I think it would help, man. I think yoga would help take the edge off of all the pressure and just kind of zone. And eventually I would imagine that you do zone into some.
Okay. So the big thing that it did, as I said at the beginning, when I first did yoga, I felt everyone was judging me and watching me. And even though I was being filmed by my video crew, I didn't feel, at one point I looked up and everybody was just, focusing on their own thing. And I looked around and no one was judging me. No one was laughing at me or
Right.
anything.
Right.
And so the combination of that and the thing that really like affected me in a way that I had no idea was the sound bath part.
Right.
There was some, and we talked about it afterward. And she said, "Oh, is it?" And I have no musical ability at all. And she was like, "It's the high C or the D or the something." But there was some note that she hit when we did the lying there sound bath part that was completely transportative. Like I felt like I was zooming.
That's dope. You know what? Another thing besides Pro Club, shout out to Thrive Wellness, Thrive in Venice. They had an open house today. That's where Monique works at. She
Okay,
runs it.
right.
And they do sound baths. They do yoga. I think they might actually do or offer some of this. I'm going to tell them about that.
I would go
It's
back.
great.
I would go back and do just the sound bath.
baths. I've
part
heard they're
high
amazing.
And do sound bath.
I did like a gong bath over in Santa Monica, like multiple gongs.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say that if I was high and doing that, it would feel fan-fucking-tastic.
Well, when I saw the bowls, right away it reminded me of this morning. They had all the sound bath stuff out. So I've heard incredible things. I want to try it too. But I can imagine a sound bath stone.
Right.
That would really take you there, huh?
Let's all do it.
Let's do it. And you were really high.
I was super high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fucking love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were
You know what I've been wanting to do?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I've gone into isolation tanks before, the isolation tanks, right? Yeah, and I love them. And I'm not smoking currently at this time in my life. I'm not smoking cannabis, but I definitely want to get in there. But I've thought, like, I wonder what that would be like, stone going into it. Have you been to one of those? Have you done one of those?
I have
Stone?
not. I have not.
I feel like
Is it the smoking or is it the cannabis? Because you could take a whole lot of edibles. and
No.
learn today.
It's the cannabis in
Yeah,
general. I'm just
yeah,
not doing it. But I just think that those types of, like you're saying, the gong,
Activities.
those types of activities, I think already with nothing,
right.
take you to a certain place.
Have you ever been high on like a roller coaster at like Magic Mountain or something?
So, Magic Mountain is one of the best places. That ride, not Magic Mountain.
The Matterhorn?
What's the one that's in the dark? The
Space Mountain.
Space Mountain is like one of the best.
Out now.
That was one
Stone
of the top,
experiences?
One of the top 10 things. I did a whole thing about top 10 things to do in LA, and one was pet jellyfish at the Long Beach Aquarium. But
While stoned.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you should do like a whole Steve Reeves or like some kind of fucking stone travel show, bro, where you just get really fucking baked and just go to different locations and say, if you're gonna go to fucking Cleveland, right, this is what you want to do when you're fucking baked, and then just take them through all the whole thing.
So I did 10 places in LA.
Right.
So I see what you're saying. Like, and the wax museums in Hollywood. Because it's
Hollywood
they're
and Vine,
open,
yeah.
They're open till midnight.
They're crazy.
There's
Just to
Madame
go in there
Tussauds, and then
sober,
there's-
you go in there and
yeah,
it's a fucking trip.
And there's some that are spot on. Like the Seth Rogen one, I don't know if it's because I was high.
Right.
Looked absolutely, and the Snoop Dogg one, both looked really real. But then there was one that like I was looking at, and I'm like, is that Aaron Eckhart? It was supposed to be Johnny Cash.
Right.
And it was just like horrible.
It was your friend.
Like,
Yeah.
the
You're
guy
this is a
designing
really
it was kind of back and forth.
and
This
like-
is a really bad wax, whatever. And it's like, dude, I'm your friend. I just came with you.
And they have props. So like if it's the Clint Eastwood one, you can
Right.
put on the hat and it's it's ridiculous. So
All right, so let's go further into Adam's investigation of stoned yoga, and let's see Adam struggling, since that's obviously what the producers wanted when they put this. Look at that! He's right now contemplating his weed pants.
People will
And
come in and they'll set up their space, and they'll have time to smoke,
I love this lady.
socialize, make new friends. So we'll do that for maybe like, I don't know, until everybody arrives within like 15 minutes. And then we'll start the yoga for like about an hour or so. And then afterwards, you're welcome to stay, hang out, and like smoke and like chat, with your new friends. Or
Pick up on chicks.
whatever you
Right,
want.
exactly.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, look
My
at that!
man.
Look at he smoke. How high are you there, bro?
Look at him. He's talking to himself in the corner. Yeah. Oh, no, there's people there. I thought you were like,
Look, here he goes.
I'm feeling cannabis enhanced.
yeah.
You look fucking stoned,
Yeah,
bro.
you look like you're in a much
Blistered.
better mood now.
Yeah, there were like one of those buttons when you leave the restroom. It's like, were you happy with this experience? Yes or no?
Looking forward to doing this.
I'm not.
Yeah,
you go.
yeah,
Dude, look
yeah.
at that walk. That is
Adam
the most.
does yoga.
It's like on the Green
anti-yoga.
Mile, yeah.
Right.
Breath in, extend your arms up, reach up. And then exhale, cactus your arms to 90 degrees, press your heart to the sky. Good. Inhale, extend the arms back up.
I see
And
you
then we're going to
channeling.
twist to the right. Bring your
Annie
left hand on
Lennox.
top of the right knee, right hand behind you. And then inhale, lengthen the spine, sit up a little taller.
You're in your own world now. Who's
And then
that chick right
exhale,
next to you, bro?
take a
Damn,
deep
dude.
breath.
She was the one that's like, am I going to be on camera?
I mean,
here's the
I
sound
love
bath.
my wife.
Oh, shh. Yeah. You can feel it from here.
Yeah.
It's dope.
Don't judge it, oh blue eyes. Just exist with it.
Wow, that's powerful just through the microphone.
Fuck, that's great.
Another deep breath. And then slowly come back to center.
The hell is that? Oh,
Little
cat
downward
cow.
dog.
Little cat cow.
How about 3
Look
more
at that.
deep breaths?
Cacao, cacao. Do the cacao.
Dude, he's in
Feel like you
another
might
world
wanna
right
come
now.
back
Look at
to
his
See, I'm
arms
struggling, I'm
If the
struggling.
body allows. So you do whatever feels good for your body. We're gonna stay
Nothing
here
feels good for
for.
Yeah.
Look at
Oh,
look,
no,
now
that's
he's
a-
She's got like
Christ.
a
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
pro.
Yeah. Look at this guy. Show off.
What are they doing in the garden?
Nah, they weren't good enough to be on camera. The producers were like, get out of here. Look at her. I mean, that is who you think is teaching this class. Adam, what am I doing here? What the hell is going on?
Yeah. All right.
That sounds
That's good. I think we get the thing. Yeah.
great.
I
Yeah.
feel like I'm hypnotized.
Ugh.
Hold on.
Yeah, Adam.
So what would you, who was that and where would people go if they wanted to do some stone
So
yoga?
she has her own website. I think it's Yoga with Jessie. I believe now instead of doing her, I'm not sure, she does it once a month. I think she may have be doing it in a place in San Pedro or Long Beach. I think in the print story that accompanies that, there's a link to it.
Right.
But I do know also, I looked up before I came here, the Artist Tree in West Hollywood also has stone yoga classes, and that's in West Hollywood. So, but Jessie really was super kind and like knew that I had concerns and was worried about it, and really helped me into it.
That's awesome. And then he also interviewed David Crosby.
That's great, bro.
I
Absolutely.
mean, look at this dude. And my favorite part of this, Adam, by the way,
Never done either. They don't have any
Watch it.
idea.
God, he looks like a
I don't
farmer.
need- Hey, shut the f up. We're doing an interview here,
Yeah.
the best thing about this is he goes to David Crosby's house.
Is that up in Topanga?
No, this was up in Santa Ynez.
Oh,
We
okay. All right.
shot the intro to it in Topanga.
Okay.
And David Crosby, right? And some of the younger listeners probably may not know Crosby, Stills, and Nash, maybe one of the biggest groups, most influential, iconic, come out of the Laurel Canyon sound, right? And so then, and now he's older or whatever. And there's this moment, I don't remember where it was. Do you remember this? Where you ask him, like, what do you guys do with cannabis or whatever? What are you guys doing? And he talks about what his family does. And they get high, and he and his wife, Jan, smoke in their bed, and they play Words with Friends.
Yes, yeah.
And then he explains to you what Words with Friends is. He's like, it's like crossword puzzles. It's like Scrabble on an iPad. And you just kind of go, yeah. But like, he doesn't realize, he's so old, he doesn't realize that everybody knows what Words with Friends is.
right.
That was awesome. What was that like for you to interview an
So-
icon?
This was set up for me. Before I go any further, I do want to say, just like you guys are all a team here, like the guys who I work with, because this was set up by Eric Himmelsbach Weinstein, who was the producer. He had an in with David Crosby and set that up, and so he and Mark Potts and Cody Long, I got to give them full credit because they saw that I had some sort of something that I could add to this. So I just didn't want to be remiss that like even though I'm the face of it, there's like a whole thing. And Eric had an in with David. I guess he'd interviewed him or talked to him at some point in the past, and we went there because he's trying to launch a brand called the Mighty Croz, a cannabis brand. And essentially what he's doing is he's trying to find the right partners for it. There is no product that I know of yet
Right.
So he's looking and looking, but his name is out there as somebody who smokes a lot of weed, and so I was super nervous. I prepared. I read all about how he was the go-to for the Beatles when they were in the U.S. to get weed.
Right. He even does an accent in your episode.
He does a John Lennon, and he was like, "Oh, you really did prepare." I'm like, "What are we gonna do? Go talk to David Crosby and not be prepared?"
Right. That's like a fucking right.
But I was nervous. I was nervous as a pregnant nun. I was super nervous, and we sat there, and he taught me how to roll a joint. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And what about your relatives still in Vermont? Do they look at like this crazy Adam Tschorn that's out there covering cannabis in communistic LA? I mean, like, what is their perspective?
They don't see it as much of a disconnect as they did when I was writing about fashion.
Really?
Right? Because I've been into weed since I grew up in Vermont in the 80s and 90s. It's like, it's weed. And
how old were you when you first started smoking weed?
It was the summer before my senior year in high school. I think I was 15 or 16.
What was the situation?
I worked in Southern California. There's a mountain, or Southern California. In Southern Vermont, there's a mountain called Mount Equinox. And the base of the mountain is like 1,500, 2,000 feet above sea level. The bar in the hotel on the top of the mountain barely topped 4,000 feet. So it was a 5-mile road, and the whole mountain at that point was owned by the Carthusian monks. It had been gifted to them, and so we all worked in the hotel up there, and we all lived up there because to go up and down the mountain every day. Right. And so I lived up there, and a Vietnam vet by the name of Leo LaBelle, and my brother was smoking. Everybody else smoked, and I had never smoked cannabis before, and he was like, everyone was sitting around. It was a bong. Everyone was sitting around and smoking, and it would be like he would have a bong, I would have a bong. He would have a bong, I would have a bong. He would have a bong. So I was getting like 3 times as many hits.
What year is this?
This was 1981 or 2.
Wow.
81 or 82.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What are Carthusian monks?
So they are a cloistered order of monks, meaning they don't talk to anyone. All they do is they sit in their monastery and pray for you, for everyone.
Were they growing weed?
No, I think some Carthusians made chartreuse, the liquor. Others and some nuns make cheesecake. I don't think they didn't. Their source of income was this 15% of everything that happened at the hotel, the inn on top of the mountain.
Wow.
And at night when they would chant, if the weather was just right, you could hear it drift up from the valley.
So let me ask you a question. What kind of weed were you smoking? What was going on back then?
See, back then weed didn't have names. It was just weed. It was like somebody had weed and you would smoke it. And and then there was the great weed famine of 1984 when there was no weed. We had T-shirts printed up, and you were like going and scraping out out all the resin and
It's interesting because I think around 80, 81, we were all buying weed down in downtown LA. It was coming in brick form from Mexico, and I remember the first time somebody busted out indica. And they were growing it up in Santa Monica Mountains, in homes, in-house, light, indoor. And there was bigger, older guys that were doing grows like in Topanga. And it was coming out of there. It wasn't coming from up north. They were doing it up north, but it hadn't gotten here. But there was a group of primarily white boys that were all growing, and they had indica buds that were growing. I remember first time I had seen these golf ball buds, and smelled like a skunk. I was in the 10th. So it must have been 82 or 83. And I remember this fucking weed, dude. And fucking took a hit of this shit. And one hit got you ripped.
Yeah.
And everybody was smoking Sensimilla from Mexico.
Look at Adam's face. He's drooling.
And it was, so I'm wondering at that time what was going on in Vermont, because I know that out of California, we were really pushing the fucking envelope of like developing all this weed.
It was usually, I mean, you'd see all kinds of stuff. You'd see the bricks of stuff, the compressed brown bricks of stuff. Right. But in the fall, when the outdoor grow, in the mountains and the hills, and there would be some really good sticky, skunky green bud, and it would because it was all outdoor. Nobody was growing if they were growing indoors, under lights and stuff, they weren't doing. It wasn't making it to Vermont.
Right.
Some stuff would come in, because Lake Champlain extends up. Vermont is on the Canadian border. They would bring some stuff in that way, but for the most part, it was catch as catch can. Like I said, you wouldn't be like, oh, what is this? There was no sativa or indica. There was just like, a guy would come by with a bag full of stuff, and you'd buy it or you wouldn't.
In your youth or in your time during the Great Weed Famine, and you were driven to the oppressed, hard, cruel weed hunger, did you ever smoke anything as a substitute, hoping that it would get you high that was completely silly?
No, I mean,
Banana
you hear about like,
hell yeah.
you hear about like, like weird, we call them shoobs, like your rednecks or whatever, smoking corn silk, but no, nobody ever did that. Like, yeah, no, like
shoobs. I like my new word, shoobs.
That's what Vermonters call Vermonters that are more rural than them.
Right.
Shoob.
Not the big city people in Montpelier.
Yeah. You just have your one plaid shirt and your one pair of jeans and like maybe,
a shoob.
A shoob.
Shoob. I smoked fucking banana pills.
Did you?
Yeah, it was after I had smoked weed like as a kid for the first time. And we got stoned, and then for the next week we couldn't find any weed, and somebody's like, "Hey, I smoke some banana pills," and we dried them in the oven and smoked them. I swear we got high.
Once you realize there's something that'll get you high, then you're like, "Well, maybe this will get me high."
Smoking everything, right?
No, King Salmon and I, when we were in middle school, smoked peanut papers on a rumor that would get you high.
Right.
And it did not.
Trying everything.
We smoked everything. Yeah. So, Sean,
yes, sir.
You're a contemplative man.
I am.
Your wife is a Sikh.
Yeah.
You've heard it all.
I have.
What questions do you have for Mr. Tschorn?
Yeah, what do you sense? It feels like LA is becoming a real epicenter for marijuana. You can see it happening right now. What is like the next big thing? What are you pursuing as far as stories go, and like how is LA changing?
So I don't want to talk too much about, like I just pitched a whole bunch of stories, and I don't want to get too much into those, but you're absolutely right. It is a super exciting time, and especially as more and more states, like just yesterday, I think this fall, 5 more states have recreational cannabis on the ballot, and I think there's like 19 states now, and I've heard for a long time, and I absolutely agree that even though you can't take cannabis across state lines, that the technology and the growing, of course, obviously up in the Emerald Triangle, that California is the center of what's happening in cannabis in this country, and LA is the center of what's happening. The Emerald Cup came down. The Emerald Cup came down to LA, because we have the media, we have the technology, we have the people. There are all kinds of grows everywhere. So it's very exciting, and that's why I'm glad that I've established a beat at the Los Angeles Times to sort of cover it in the way I think it needs to be covered. A story that just went live yesterday. I think it was yesterday. What's today? Friday? Yeah. Yesterday was about clean weed, and
What's that?
So I'm a purist. It's like it's a plant. It grows. You cut it. You dry it. You smoke it. It's like as close to as natural. Yes, it's been bred to have certain powers and different flavors and all that kind of thing. But as far as intervening with the way it comes out of the ground, very little difference. But and then you have hash, which is you agitate it with water and then take the trichomes and make it into this stuff that's kind of like a
sticky goo that you can smoke.
But that we can't leave well enough alone. And then we have to add chemicals to it. You add chemicals to the plant to remove the stuff that's good, and then you have to remove the chemicals that you added. Right. And then so now you have something that looks like anywhere from looking like snot to looking like oil. Right. And then and so clean weed is sort of is following in the footsteps of the organic food movement. Right. And one of the first things I did was talk to a doctor, because if I'm going to talk about clean weed, then of course the first question is, was my regular weed dirty? Is it going to kill me? Right. And he likened it to organic food. Is we intuitively feel that food grown without any chemicals is somehow is safer. There are limits. There are state limits to the amount of pesticides
Right.
and everything. So we seem to be saying that a certain amount is okay, right? But less is then probably better, right?
Right, because they don't know long term what these chemicals are doing to the human body, especially as they stack up and stack up and stack
Right.
up over a long term consumption.
And when you're smoking, you're also combusting these things,
Right.
And so, yes, you can add a chemical and then recover the chemical, so what you have has trace amounts, or even something that tests below, that you doesn't even register.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's not there. So the big thing is rosin, which is solventless. In other words, it's just the mechanical agitation and then heat and then pressure to turn the plant, to get the concentrated stuff that you can smoke.
Right.
And so, there are companies that have been doing it for a while, but now the consumer demand is there, and there's more and more stuff on the shelves.
Right.
And so I tried in this story to write, there's resin, which is solvent-based extraction, and then there's rosin, which is just one letter off, but it's a whole different creature. And then I have to learn this stuff like sort of on the fly. Is that to get into the liquid form that can be in a vaporizer pen, there needs to be something that gets it to that viscosity, which is usually another chemical.
Wow.
And so there are a couple companies that, say they have a proprietary way of making it that way with no chemicals whatsoever.
Right.
So that was really exciting. And it's a new beat at the LA Times, and I don't always expect that it's going to get a lot of eyeballs, or what we call conversions, where someone will then within an hour of reading your story will subscribe. That's one measure of if something's successful. But six people within an hour of reading the story so far have subscribed.
I subscribed as soon as Stone Yoga, I read it. I said, God damn it, I'm going to subscribe to the LA Times.
And so I hope to continue to write more stuff and do more videos. The videos aren't behind the paywall, but so that's something. And one of the things that really resonates with our readers, no pun intended,
right,
is
Resonate.
Utility stuff, and is saying, like I did weed drinks, like 5 weed drinks. We got a whole bunch of people together. We tested all these drinks to come up with 5 that actually tasted good, because most weed drinks are like this weedy seltzer sort of thing. So, and I'm one of the things I'm going to work on, is what to expect when you go to a dispensary for the first timer. For people who are, boomers who maybe they want to go back. And I was having lunch with a different
state.
Well, coming in from a different state. And,
right, like Vermont.
Or get freaked out that there's a security guard standing near the door.
With a gun.
Right? That what's up?
Right, I thought it was legal.
Yeah. And so, even though there may be an ATM in there, it'd be great to bring cash. You need to bring your ID. And,
sure.
I remember the first time I went into a legal dispensary. It was up in Seattle, and I was just like a kid in a candy store.
Right.
I was just like, it was just like dazzling, like sugar plums.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, shit. So where do people go to get your stories and see your series? Where do people go? So
they go to latimes.com,
Yep.
and you just go up to the search bar at the top and type in Cannabis, because I make sure tagging all the stories.
Right.
And on YouTube, the LA Times YouTube channel, if you go to youtube.com/c/LA Times, I think.
Right.
But if you, just look up LA Times and Cannabis, almost guaranteed one of my stories will be.
And Mr. Tschorn,
like that.
Obviously Burner is good enough for Forbes, the cover of Forbes. Is Burner going to be good enough for the LA Times?
Yeah, Burner has been on my radar for a very long time, and from the features point of view, I want to do something fun and dynamic with him. And I think he's going to be at MJ BizCon.
Yes.
I'm trying to see if I can go to MJ BizCon. I have talked to the PR company that works with him, that represents him. They get him in front of me all the time. So I have that. I just have not, at one point I pitched a story about the opening of the dispensary on Melrose, but that, I'm not doing straight store openings.
Gotcha.
But he has. When I went, I was about to. Just got back from a trip to Europe, and I was going to Amsterdam, and I asked the PR people about where I should go, a consumption lounge, and they said, "Oh, you might want to try out Cookies." They said, in all fairness, he's a client of ours, and I said, "What is Cookies doing in Amsterdam?" And
No
has a consumption lounge,
Yep.
and Cookies is one of those brands that has an international presence. I think he's big
Yes, we
in
do.
Spain, right?
Yep, yep.
So no, it's something.
It's grown.
And now that I have another connection, like this is a good way to sort of ruminate things in my head.
It's organically coming at you.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
Like clean weed.
Yeah, like clean weed organically.
Yeah, right
So-
on.
And I'm thinking like I would love to sit down and smoke with burn. I don't know if that's that's the next iteration of some of these people maybe like getting
Well,
high
you
with
better
them.
you better
Yeah.
put on your
But
helmet.
he is Burner is very much on my radar, and I know another story that I'm working on. I know that Burner is involved with the brand and a consumption lounge near with this growing facility. So
Yes.
that might I'm circling.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Right
We're going
on.
to stay in contact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I've read a lot of your different articles. Some of them are the secret weed dinner that you went to. You also went into Santa Rosa, and we saw all these different weed, marijuana, cannabis, the hell is it called? Merchandise, food, drinks, powders, and everything else. So thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in, man.
Oh,
We
thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it. No,
Awesome, bro.
we were honored.
This was good.
Beautiful.
fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
You got to come back in.
Again, now I was nervous at first, but now you guys gave me a warm welcome, and
I'm going to have a whole flower package for you next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got
What
you.
we want to do is an A and B.
Buy cookies
Yeah, you come in, right, straight. Then
Yep.
you give him the cookies package.
outside in the parking lot.
And as we do the interview, right, toke by toke by toke, we'll just see what he gets as
Yeah.
he gets fucking
Yeah.
more and
And
more
at the end,
smashed.
Edibles, toke.
Right. By the end, he's doing yoga over here in the corner. I love it.
Excellent.
All right, very good.
What you got?
Ovando Bowen, we wear braids to court. Let the tomahawks fly, the best legal representation that money can buy.
Sean at movemental.media for all your audio and podcasting needs. Don't forget to hit up www.hardluckshow.com.
Right.
Go over there.
Gumroad.
Get dirty.
Get crazy.
Get filthy.
If you are insidious enough, you will find the big Lepke sound drops, and you can play your own Lepke games.
That ain't good.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. No, if I eat a hot dog right now, my blood pressure goes up. All right.
www.supermaxhardware.com, one of our sponsors. Go there, check out Summer. Big shout out to Cookies and Vibes. Vibes Rolling Papers and cookiessf.com. Go support us.
You have any shout outs?
You got any shout outs?
Plugs?
Any plugs?
I want to shout out to, like I said, I want to shout out to the guys on the video team.
Who are they?
Eric Himmelsbach-Weinstein, Mark Potts, and Cody Long, who helped bring the green room to fruition and therefore put me in front of you guys. And to the LA Times in general for taking a chance and letting me run with something that is near and dear to my heart and approach it in the way that I think it should be put in front of our readers.
Shout out to Adam, the Green Room, the LA Times. Follow this guy. Check out his podcast. We're out of here. Hasta la vista.